We're going to talk about PragerU.
Hi there, I'm Marissa Streit. I'm the CEO of PragerU. Now, you don't usually see me on camera, but today is a very special day at PragerU. We have an amazing...
Look at how wholesome she is. She has orange gumballs in her office? Okay.
Amazing guest, so it's my honor to welcome her and have a conversation with her. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, thanks for coming in.
Holy shit. Okay, I need full disclosure. I haven't watched this video prior to watching it, okay, guys? I didn't know that she was gonna show up. A person who is known for doing nothing but lying is in a video about how American students deserve a better education. Oh my gosh. This is like Christmas.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
I'm proud to say that I have an accomplished young lady sitting with me, and I'm sure many media companies are not going to recognize how accomplished you are, but I am. And we are here at PragerU very much appreciative of everything you've done for our country, and so proud of your work. In addition to that, we both have 3 little children.
I do need to ask, what has Sarah Huckabee Sanders done for our country that is good? I would like an example, please. Is there anything that she has done that is a benefit to the public other than lying for the president? Is there anything that we can say that she has done? I'm gonna look this up, okay? Good things Sarah Huckabee Sanders has done. Okay, well, the first result is from New York Magazine, highlights of Sarah Huckabee Sanders' career of deflection. Okay, the New York Times, her battles with the press corps behind her, Sanders plans a political future. Okay, so she's trying to set herself up for a conservative office in the near future, okay. Oh, she's all in with Trump. Okay. Well, I guess we'll like none of the results have been positive. Let's take a quick look here. Career of deflection. The firing of James Comey. Sanders gave her first White House press briefing on May 5th, 2017, when former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was on Naval Reserve duty. 4 days later, President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey. Sanders responded well amid the chaos, meaning she showed a knack for deflecting questions. Let's see.
No, I can definitively say the president's not a liar, and I think it's frankly insulting.
Okay. Yeah. When Comey accused the president of giving shifting explanations about his dismissal, Sanders defended Trump. I can definitively say that the president is not a liar, and I think it's frankly insulting that question was asked. The Rob Porter scandal. An interview was published in which former White House staff secretary Rob Porter was accused of domestic abuse from both his former wives. Reports also emerged that the White House was aware of the issue, as the FBI told officials about the details the previous summer. The allegations, especially sensitive considering the president's own allegations of sexual misconduct voiced by 23 women, 23 women, infuriated Sanders, who reportedly cursed and yelled at former White House counsel Don McGahn for not giving her all the details before she gave her initial public statements. Still, after Porter's forced resignation, Sanders did not alter her statements to the press. Jeez Louise. I'm not going to go through all of these, but, yeah. Alright. Cool. She's a cool lady. Planning a career in politics. True, conservatism is the new punk rock, I guess. In her book, she talked about how Trump was ready to pimp her out to Kim Jong-un following... Oh, yeah! I totally forgot that! Holy crap. That's right. The President of the United States told her she might have to take one for the team. Oh, that's so humiliating, and she's still pro-Trump. Oh my gosh. All right.
So we're moms. And we've both really thrusted ourselves into saving America.
Phrasing.
Which is something so admirable because it hasn't been easy. Not for you, not for me, but certainly not for you. So thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with me.
Oh, this is great. I love that you emphasized young too. So I keep trying to remind people we're young. We're young.
We're still young.
We're still
It's
young.
totally true. You know what I want to ask you as a mom? What do you think is the state of America's education? And we were hearing a lot of conversations about this, especially right now. Some people are feeling like there should be more patriotism taught to kids in school. Some people are feeling like we should be more critical of America's education system, but also of America in general. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one of the most dangerous things we can do is get away from the real purpose of education, and that is to focus on the students. So much of what we've seen take place over the last several years, even the last decade, is moving more of the teachers' unions are the focus and the...
What? No. The whole point of education. How many knickers have you sucked behind your daddy's back? Well, I'm gonna ban you for that, but I also don't really understand the question. But, goodbye. We need BTTV emotes? I don't know what that means. I don't know any of your crazy Twitch lingo, friend. I also don't know what, like, was he talking about, like, sucking underwear? Or was he, like, trying not to get banned by, and, like, getting around saying the N-word? Was he trying to say a gamer word? Look 'em when you get a chance. You can add a lot of flavor to chat. Okay. Is that something I can add in the back end? Well, we'll talk later, okay? But the purpose of education is to serve students. It's to prepare them to enter the working world, right? It is to educate them, give them a full spectrum of ideas. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why it's their business, so. Also, like, what kind of weird incest fantasy is that? Like, yeah, I bring guys over and, like, okay, Dad, turn around for a little bit, okay? Don't turn around. Just look at the wall for a bit, okay? Like, why is that, like, a weird fantasy that people have in chat? I don't get it. Anyway, the purpose of education is to educate students. And you know what helps to educate students? When teachers have decent pay and better working conditions and are able to advocate for those things, which is why teacher unions have become such a big deal. Because in our country, where unions have been on the downslide for a very long time now, teachers' unions are one of the few organizations that remain strong. And that's something that we saw relatively recently with the wildcat strikes, with teacher unions all across the country going on strike. And part of that reason is because a lot of states have the discretion to cut education funding. And when education funding is cut, that means that class sizes get bigger, which means, like, you know, you can fit more students into a classroom and you have to hire less teachers. But it also means that teachers don't get as big, like, you know, their pay doesn't keep up, their hours go up, you know, they have to do more work for a larger classroom, obviously. And due to all of those pressures, they have less time to spend educating students. And this is part of the reason why privatizing education is bad, because private education then siphons the rich students out of the classroom, which means rich families do not have an incentive to pay into a public education system. So that further means that public education gets cut, which further, you know, it creates this cycle, right? And in the meantime, these private institutions tend to siphon off teachers as well, which means that we are currently in the middle of a teaching crisis where we don't have enough teachers to go around, but we also aren't willing to pay teachers enough money to be willing to teach and, like, go into that field. So it's like this vicious problem, but it's why teacher unions, as Sarah Huckabee Sanders points out, have come to the forefront because we need to invest in teachers if we're going to invest in our students, because our teachers are the ones doing the job of investing in our students.
Everything except the students. And we have to get back where the number one priority is about what is best for the kids. Certainly, I think one of the things that makes America so incredible is that we do have a patriotic spirit, and we do believe in certain values, and we protect and we fight and we preserve those values. If we
Notice how, by the way, whenever a conservative says we have these patriotic values, they never, ever say what those values are. And when they do, when they are forced to say what the values are, they come out and they come out with values that not everyone in America holds. Like, America is founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs, which is a very modern conception of America's founding and not at all based on the historical facts. There is this like things like that, or like what are other patriotic conceptions are warfare. We're good at warfare. What place does instilling these cultural values have in our education system? I would argue that our country should be good enough to speak for itself with a fully rounded education. I would argue for that. That means you teach the good things as well as the less good things. You teach the history of the country. For example, at the beginning of this stream, people were whining about the 1619 project. But you talk about what makes America great, and you talk about the narratives of the people who lived under that supposedly great America. Because you talk about those underrepresented narratives, specifically because they are underrepresented in history courses. And they give a really important context and further educational value to what makes our country great. Because I would argue, by the way, that one of the things that makes our country great isn't all encompassed in the founding documents and events of our country. I would argue that part of what makes our country great is that we have citizens who rose up and fought for what's right. We have the civil rights movement. We have the feminist movement that got women the right to vote and got women closer to equal pay. And like all of these movements have a long history in our country, and they're part of what makes our country great today. But the people in those movements, the people largely affected by those movements, have a history that goes far back in our country to its very founding as a colony. And we should be teaching those narratives alongside the narratives of the white men who were largely empowered by the systems of discrimination that existed back then. And we should talk about the narratives of people who were disempowered by the systems that were put in place back then as well. I feel like this is a really self-evident kind of perspective to have, which is one of the reasons that, like, this whole idea of a patriotic education really bothers me. As someone who learned both history and English in university.
Lose that, we lose who we are as a country. And kids shouldn't be ashamed to be Americans. They should be proud. And we've got to go back to instilling that in their schools and in our homes.
You know how you instill people with pride in being American? You have a country that actually supports working people. Like, that's my whole position as a market socialist. My whole position is that we can do better by decommodifying things that are necessary for, like, life in a modern society, be that, like, housing or electricity or water, food, healthcare, things like that. We can do better by our citizens, and by doing better by our citizens, we become a country that is more worthy of saying that we are a truly great country. That's what I would argue. A great country is a country that provides for its citizens.
Homes too.
We don't do that.
I think equally as important, if not more so, that we do that first and foremost at our home.
is America not teaching kids what they should be learning about America?
Well, I think it's not even just what's happening in schools, but our culture as a whole. Certainly the radical left has made it somehow negative now to be an American. We shouldn't have.
No. The radical left, by the way, I am the radical left. I am a socialist. I am very far left of most politicians in our country. The radical left is not ashamed of being American. The radical left balks at the kind of weak Americans who are afraid of the truth being taught to kids because it might make them dislike America. I happen to have faith in our country. I happen to have faith in the youth of our country. I happen to think that by teaching the truth, you get much farther than by trying to hide the disreputable and like awful things that have happened in the past. You don't just try and cover up the massacre at Wounded Knee. You teach about what led to the massacre at Wounded Knee, and you teach about it specifically so that we can work together to build a better world where that doesn't happen. That's why we need an education system, by the way, that fully encompasses the history of this country, and not one that relies on the instilling patriotism as its primary goal, because instilling patriotism is just filling kids with lies, and I would much rather focus on filling kids with truth so that they can properly love our country, and that our educators and our population is not full of people who are afraid of and need to censor the history of our country.
Apologize for being the greatest country on the planet. We should be proud of that and help other countries come alongside us to achieve what we have done. And I don't think there's anything wrong with kids learning to celebrate and be proud of this country. And we've definitely...
And look, she's right. There is nothing wrong with kids learning to celebrate and be proud of their country. I don't think there is anything inherently wrong about that. However, we should be able to do that in a country where we learn about the actual history of the United States, not some fanciful fictional thing about, well, George Washington was a pure saint who, he never told a lie and he chopped down a cherry tree. And, no, tell the actual story of George Washington. Don't mythologize the man. Paco's Tacos 123, 100% agree with you. We don't learn about American imperialism during the Cold War. We don't learn about the interventions that America did in Latin America and South America. We don't learn about the death squads that we helped fund or the terrorists we helped arm. We don't learn about those things, and we should, so that we can build a future where we don't do that, where we have a better country, where we have an America that is worth being proud of. And we can only do that by teaching accurate information, accurate narratives that give full context to where our nation came from, so that we can figure out where our nation is going. I think that this is all very dangerous stuff when you start talking about how kids need to be indoctrinated with patriotism.
Seen a major shift away from that, but not just in our schools, in our entire culture. And we've got to get back to where that's not a negative thing. It shouldn't be a political thing anymore to be proud of being an American.
And what do you think it does for like a young child? How old is your oldest?
Mine are 8, 6, and 5.
8, 6, and 5. So mine are 7, 5, and 2. And, I keep thinking about the messaging for children. So what do you think it does to the psyche of a child to hear that all this negativity about America?
I don't give a shit about the negativity of American history. Because you know what? We should know the negative as well as the positive. The idea that children are psychologically harmed by learning the truth about their country is some real, Nazi propaganda shit. Some real, big brain take, 1984-esque stuff, Fahrenheit 451 stuff. Yeah, burn the history books so that our children can't learn the truth of our country, right? Right, we should be able to live in a country where we're not afraid to assign Noam Chomsky as like reading for high school students. We should be able to live in a country where we're not afraid to be able to, talk about important historical events. I didn't learn, by the way, about like the more contentious parts of American history until I was in college. And that frankly should be unforgivable. So the idea now that like kids are learning even younger that from like far left teachers that America is evil and bad is absolutely laughable, because I can guarantee you that's not in the state mandated curriculums of any of the United States like school systems. Not a single one, okay?
What, from your experience, what do you think it feels like for children?
Well,
Oh, and also notice how these people are talking in extreme generalities. They aren't talking about specific school systems. They're not talking about specific school programs. They're talking like in this very general way to give viewers the impression that all school systems in the US are run by far leftists who are trying to undermine the future of our country, you know?
certainly, I think it's a negative when it shouldn't be. Again, one of the things that kids should be proud of is who they are. Both being an American at my house, I want my kids to be proud that we're a family of faith, that we are proud conservatives. We shouldn't be ashamed of who we are. God created us with a specific purpose.
And you shouldn't be ashamed of being conservative. You should be ashamed of being a fascist. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with being a conservative. However, you shouldn't be conservative. You should be a socialist like me, because that would make you very based, very cool, and it would mean that you actually care about the well-being of your fellow man.
All still Americans, and that's a great thing.
I agree with you. And I would say, people will say to me, well, don't you think your kids should learn about slavery? Don't you think your kids should learn about some of the negative things that have happened in American history? To that, my response is oftentimes, of course they should learn about slavery. And
But the negativity that kids are learning about America, why would you teach slavery? It would spread this negativity about the United States. Aren't you trying to teach your kids to be patriotic and not hate America? PragerU's president, what are you saying? Welcome to the resistance, comrade. Your radical leftism is shining through.
and the wars. And I'm not saying that America is perfect. First of all, I think there's a time and a place to teach a child about American history. So at a certain age, there's also perspective that needs to be considered when you're teaching young children.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if you go to our radical leftist schools, kids as young as 10 years old are learning about like the drug wars perpetrated by the CIA. They're becoming radicalized in our school system. I remember when we were 10 and we made handprint turkeys and talked about pilgrims. Now they're learning about the narcos and the drug trading, and like, no, that's not happening. None of this is happening. This is like weird fear-mongering on her part.
But also, it's about the quantity of it. How much negativity of America do we need to teach versus how much positive aspect of America, and how you teach it matters as well. Which really leads me to another concern of mine, which is the New York Times 1619 Project. So,
oh, dang, guys, dang! Look, we came full circle. At the beginning of the stream, we got Chuds whining about the 1619 Project and how it's wacky and insane. Now I get a chance to rehash my points. I'm actually really happy about this. And true, Paco's Tacos. People have lost track of what conservative means. There's like this whole political spectrum, and so much of the American right has shifted and become like extremists, like to the point where like people who consider themselves moderate are like listening to Ben Shapiro talk about how like like just wackadoodle like Ben Shapiro and like Tim Pool. Like Tim Pool's one of the largest like conservative commentators on the internet, even though he bills himself as a classical liberal. And he just talks about like the oncoming like race war or political war, civil war, all the fucking time. And that's not like a conservative talking point. That is a far-right extremist talking point. Like, that's the kind of thing that these right-wing militia terrorists talk about in their private get-togethers. That's the kind of thing that the group that was going to kidnap a governor a couple weeks ago and, like, blow up bridges and police departments, that's what they talk about. Like, they want to ignite the Civil War, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that they talk about. And that is what conservative currently means in the United States. So when we're talking about, like, moderate conservatives in the US, oftentimes they are just straight up fascists. Or they're people who are totally fine with fascism as long as they personally benefit. Have you seen the new Borat? I have not seen the new Borat yet. It looks real great, though. I'm real excited about it. But let's continue on.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about that, and why are people concerned about it?
Well, I think first and foremost, I don't know that I want the New York Times dictating anything that my kids learn. In large part,
Okay, first thing, I don't think the New York Times is dictating anything that any kids are learning in schools. I don't think that's happening. Like, what is this point? The 1619 Project isn't a school curriculum. It is a journalistic and historical project to put out a broader narrative and publish a broader narrative that represents an underrepresented minority that has been historically overlooked when it comes to history and what is taught to our general population. I don't think like 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds even are like getting the New York Times and like reading the 1619 Project and being like, gee whiz, I'm a radical leftist now. Like, I don't think that's happening. But anyway, let's continue with this inane bullshit.
have some real problems with the New York Times and the fact that I think they're far more opinionated than they are a news-based organization anymore. And I don't want to see them infiltrate our...
Fun fact, Fox News had to argue that it is an entertainment network, not a news network, in court. So legally, they are not considered a news outlet. They're considered an entertainment network, which means that they are held to different legal standards for their work. The New York Times, on the other hand, is a journalistic outfit, and they are held to account for those things. You know what happens if you lie at the New York Times? And, like, you don't issue a retraction, or if it can be proved that you intended to lie, do you know what happens? You get fired. You lose your job, and then you aren't hired again in the journalistic field anywhere. That's what happens. At Fox News, however, the main writer on your show can be shown to be a virulent racist who brags about indoctrinating Fox viewers publicly, and you still get to keep your television program.
Schools in the way that they, I think in so many places, have hurt journalism today by putting out information that's more opinion than news, but masking it as news. And
again, notice they're still not talking about specifics. She's talking about the New York Times. She's making these very broad, very inflammatory claims that if she could prove them, she could literally make it so that the entire journalistic staff of the New York Times would be fired, if she could prove the claims she's making right here.
On the other hand, I know the president has started sort of an opposing commission to remind kids it's okay and we should be celebrating the greatness of America and be proud of it. And it's okay to stand for the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance and sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Those are good things.
No, the 1619 Project has nothing to do with singing the pledge, like singing the Star Spangled Banner or saying the Pledge of Allegiance. However, those are creepy things. That's true. But also, like, notice that all she said about the 1619 Project was she didn't want it taught to her children, which it's not being taught to her children in any public school system. And also that she said that, she doesn't think that the New York Times is a journalistic outfit. She thinks it's more opinion-based, which, again, if she was able to prove something of that nature, she would be able to get a large number of the people there fired. But she hasn't made any other specific claims about her problems with the 1619 Project.
Things, not negative things.
I'm glad you brought up the 1776 Commission. So
they've already moved on to a different topic. Cool.
In some ways, it's been a response to the 1619 Project. Is there a place for the president to get involved in America's education? Because I'm hearing a lot.
Wait. Has anything been published from this 1776 Commission? Has anything actually come of this? There literally is nothing that I can find. Yeah, nothing. There's been nothing since it was announced. Yeah, all he has said is that he will start a new commission. So they're literally talking about a thing that hasn't even been put into action yet. Nothing has been put into action regarding the 1776 Commission, which, like, all it does is promote patriotic education as opposed to, like, factual education, and to prepare for the upcoming 250th anniversary of the United States in 2026. That's it. It's basically just a middle finger to the New York Times 1619 Project for no reason other than, the 1619 Project is about the history of black people in the U.S. Cool. All right. Well, all right. All of this is about to be bullshit.
A lot of criticism saying that this is complete government overreach. The government should not get involved in educating America. So what's your perspective on that?
Certainly, I think there's a role to play. I think the president absolutely has.
The government shouldn't overreach, but we should be teaching our kids to be patriotic. It's a really weird mental line to walk here.
Has a right to set the tone for our education system. I think that's exactly what he's doing, and reminding people that patriotism isn't a negative, but actually a positive.
Yeah, I'll say that for me. I mean, this past summer has been so overwhelming with this onslaught against America. I don't think...
What onslaught against America? What is she talking about? Because I think a lot of what's coming out of her mouth right now is just meant for the viewer, which is assumed to be conservative, to fill in the gaps.
I've ever experienced a 4th of July, like the 4th of July we experienced this past year, where in Los Angeles, I was afraid to put an American flag up.
What? Why? What?
Which I think is devastating. It's devastating for our community, for our...
By the way, what a weak fucking conservative, like, what a weak patriot you must be if you're afraid to put up an American flag. What the hell? Like, your patriotism is so important to you, but you're also too afraid to put up a flag because it might, get ripped down? What do you think is going to happen if you put up an American flag in the United States?
Our country, to have that kind of culture that is so anti-American and anti-patriotic, and it's very...
Fun fact, if you live in America and you're American, you are not anti-American for, like, trying to hold your government to a high standard. You're not anti-American to want a better life for yourself, equal rights for your fellow citizens. That does not make you anti-American. It doesn't make you anti-patriotic. In fact, I would argue that the people who are arguing against those positions, that are saying you should accept having less rights, you should accept having unequal outcomes, you should accept being treated poorly by our system, as they're being the ones who are anti-patriotic.
Very surprising.
Because they're saying that the current nation that we live in, the current system, everything being the way it is right now, is the best we can possibly do. And that's not true. That is just a lie. And it's something that is perpetuated by people who either benefit from that lie or who are so weak in their patriotism and love of country that they think that we cannot do better. I'm a patriot, and I'm here to tell you America can do better, and we can make America better.
That being pro-America is considered a political divisive issue. I mean, what is so divisive? We're all American.
Right.
So why being pro all of us is considered divisive? It's
Yeah, why is being pro all of us being considered divisive? So here's a thing. If you support the status quo, and people are being hurt by the status quo, in fact, a majority of the people in the country are being hurt by the status quo, are you really pro-America? Is America synonymous with the status quo? I would argue it is not. Because, for example, we don't consider Martin Luther King Jr. Unpatriotic. We actually consider him an American hero. But you know what he did? He marched in the streets. He died one of the most hated men in the United States when he was assassinated. And today we hail him as an American hero. Being against the status quo and fighting for better rights and better conditions for your fellow citizens makes you a patriot. And you can see that in our history time and time again, where that is the case. The argument that we are for all Americans, why do you hate us, is just an argument for the status quo. It's just an argument that you should shut up and sit down and accept your place. And sorry, but I think that our country, a country founded on revolution, a country that has time and time again had heroes rise up to push our country in more productive, more equitable directions. I think that we are, by our very nature, if anything is American, we are obligated to fight for a better outcome for our fellow men, our fellow countrymen. These kinds of people, they want you to buck that historical tradition. They want you to shut up, and they want you to let things be the way you are, because arguing that things could be better is something that they feel like could hurt them. So, yeah, let's keep going. There's still 12 minutes of this. I might blow my brains out.
It's quite strange that even if you display the American flag right now, it's considered, out of vogue and considered a terrible thing, and that children should not do it. So,
what? Yeah, I'm sure if you saw a child walking down the street with an American flag, they would get jumped and just beaten into the dirt. They just mercilessly rocked by leftist fists. No, that's not gonna happen. People wear American flags on their shirts, on their underwear, on their cars. I'm not seeing this mass pandemic of violence. I am seeing the people saying, shut up and sit down. I am seeing them support hundreds of thousands of people currently dying in the United States. I am seeing that, but not mass violence against people flying American flags. By the way, in case you're wondering when this video came out, it came out 3 days ago. So it's not like I'm reaching back in time to the height of protests or anything like that. This is from 3 days ago. So I guess I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about.
You know, I'm actually very grateful about it. Is there anything else you want to add about the details of this commission, and what do you think people can expect? I mean, I don't know. Some people have asked, is the government going to start, you know, being heavy-handed about going to every single school and making sure that there is a particular curriculum that's being implemented? Is that what, you know, we're to expect? Or
isn't that exactly what the 1776 commission that she just praised is supposed to do? Like, it's supposed to enforce patriotic education. So
what are your thoughts on that?
I can't imagine under a Trump administration there's a heavy government intrusion. If anything, I think they've proven that that's the opposite of it.
You just finished praising the 1776 commission for being something that will change education and mandate a patriotic education. I don't like an education that misrepresents American history. So I don't know what they're arguing about here.
The type of administration he's going to run. But one thing I think is very important is
the president literally has secret police forces that he has implemented on public streets during and made like public unrest worse with his policies and government overreach. King Diamond, I hope that the streets of Atlanta are not filled with blood, though I have no doubt that far-right extremists, whether or not Trump wins or loses, are going to commit some horrible acts. We've already seen a few people getting arrested, actually, for plans or attempts to kidnap Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. That's something that we've seen. But like, yeah, the government won't reach over its bounds or anything. But also, the government will say that it is perfectly justified for police to murder black people and to have concentration camps, and also have secret police, and also, you know, spy on you, and also, enforce patriotic education. But I don't think they're going to overreach their bounds.
It reminds parents, particularly in communities who feel like they're alone, as a reminder that they're not. That not only are they not alone, but that the President of the United States is supporting them, backing them up, and in this fight with them, and reminding them why it is so important for us to continue to love our country.
You mentioned this point about feeling alone, which is, again, something I really related to as a parent and as an educator. My background is actually in education.
Oh,
this
that's
past
so
summer,
sad.
I felt incredibly alone. And I've heard from many other parents who felt the same way. And then you would go on these mommy groups on Facebook. They have these mommy groups where you're
Never, ever go on a mommy group. They are the most vicious political forums I've ever seen in my life.
The most dangerous places in America.
It's really one of the most dangerous places in America. It's where you go to get doxxed, insulted, lose friends, and certainly many of these groups very much lean towards the left. And since 4th of July, there's been a lot of conversation about how you're not even supposed to celebrate 4th of July anymore. So
I feel like their perception of the public discourse might be coming almost entirely from these mommy online groups that are not indicative of the general population. Maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe they are just so plugged into these online groups that are giving them this misconception that is going along with their broader political narrative.
So, I was very much taken back by it, because I just felt like moms like me, parents like me, or educators like me did not have a place to go to find like-minded people. And it's just very hard to fight this onslaught alone. It's really hard. And you don't really know what kind of curriculum.
Again, I need to remind you, we're almost 10 minutes into this video. They have not specified what the threat is, what the onslaught is, what the actual thing that they're arguing about against is. They haven't specified anything.
you can use with your children if you're, let's say you're a homeschooler, but if you're not a homeschooler and you send your kids either to a private school or a public school, what is okay and what is acceptable, and just I felt very much alone in this entire process. And I started looking for resources, trying to see how I can inoculate my children or supplement the education that they were getting, especially during the lockdown that they were at home. And I just kept finding all these barriers. It was very, very challenging. So
wait, why doesn't she just show her kids PragerU videos? After all, it is a university. And she is the president of PragerU. Surely PragerU puts together all of the materials necessary to educate a young mind. It doesn't. It's just propaganda.
We decided at PragerU to launch this program called PrEP, PragerU Resources for Educators and Parents. And essentially it's two things. One is it's just a page of resources, some links that you can find, some great books to order, great essays, great conversation, discussion points with your children. And the other part, which was that component that I felt that I was missing, was a forum where people who join PrEP can actually speak to other parents and talk about how to crowdsource these problems that we're dealing with, whether it's the onslaught or just feeling alone or not being sure how to talk to some of the educators and parents in our school. The issues are many, but hopefully this group can come together.
Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. Okay, up here, everything's fine. We've launched PragerU Educators and Parents, PrEP, to give you the resources, support, and tools to teach your children about America's blessings and limitless opportunities. Okay, kind of some weird phrasing in there, not too bad. First point, schools have been peddling leftist propaganda. Notice how in this video, they have not said the phrase leftist propaganda. They are trying to seem as reasonable as possible. But the only way they can do that is by talking in these broad generalizations. So this is where they have shunted all of their more contentious points. For decades, our schools have taught that America is not a land of plenty, but a nation of systemic oppression and inequality. Students learn half-truths or lies to make them feel ashamed of being American. We risk losing our youth to this leftist propaganda. I would really, really like a conservative, be it in chat or in the YouTube comments of this inevitable segment, to please post in the comments. Please let me know, because I am incredibly curious. Where is the leftist propaganda in your school's curriculum? I would really like to know where are the lesson plans where teachers are specifically going out of their way to teach half-truths or lies to make people ashamed of being American, and to tell me what purpose that serves. What does it serve to spend your time making students ashamed of being American? Because I'm willing to wager that there are not school plans designed to make your kids feel ashamed. We are building a powerful community. The only way to defeat this ideological takeover is by galvanizing the millions of Americans who want to take back our children's education. So again, the only way to defeat this threat, this ideological takeover, is by radicalizing the millions of Americans who want to take back our children's education. So, like, the messaging here is so clearly propaganda to get you afraid and to make you radicalized. That's why, like, people who watch Ben Shapiro, people who watch Tim Pool, people who watch PragerU and are like, wow, this seems kind of reasonable. You're missing, like, the entire points of, like, everything they're talking about. Like, the underlying message here is that you are in danger and you need to become more radical in order to properly fight against the unseen and nebulous threat posed by irrational actors that have somehow managed to gain control over every facet of American life, despite being liberal cucks. You know, they're not going to explain how the liberal cucks have managed to do this, but as a former conservative, it was other conservatives that pushed me left, not the radical left. That's interesting, Jack of Daw. I would like to hear more about that. It's time to get more involved in our children's education. PragerU, Resources for Educators and Parents, is a community committed to teaching youth about America's blessings and limitless opportunities. Well, this is just rephrasing what it said up top. Become a member with your annual donation of $25 or more. Okay, so this is just to wring more money out of people. All right. Watch 5-minute videos. What? I'm sorry. I was expecting like more education-oriented topics. I didn't expect their 5-minute video series, like the number one thing here, to be literal like propaganda pieces from their prominent this is wait. Okay, wait. Okay. This is not part of their prep plan. Okay, I was under the impression this was like their specific prep site. Okay. This is just normal PragerU's website. Gotcha. Okay. That threw me for a loop for a second, okay? We're back in it. I get it now. Okay, can I join prep? Can I join prep without paying? It doesn't look like I can just join. Nope. Okay, so you need to pay money to join this program. Access to Pro-America Community Discussion Forum committed to our children's education. Look, guys, here's my goal. If we grow this channel big enough, I would love to use the money I earn from this channel to pay the fee up front to PragerU so we can join the prep program and look at what they want to teach our kids. Let's look at what PragerU's big ideas are together, okay? I would really love that. I would love that so much. Maybe we can do that sometime in the future if we get big enough, okay? We need to grow, guys. We need to, you know, hit that follow button, help us get to the necessary numbers up there to hit up the prep program. Okay, guys? They'd probably try and take you down. I don't think so. I think it'd be fine to like look at it once. Valuable PragerU partner resources for you and your students. Oh joy, we get quarterly newsletters with educational resources. Oh, Jack of Daw, thank you very much. That's super kind of you, friend. Thank you for the gift subs. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, your annual donation of $25 or more offers the exclusive gift of 1 prep membership. Wow. Anyway, let's get back to this. You know what? We're just gonna star this. We'll come back to it later, okay, friends? Come back. We'll come back to it eventually, okay? All right.
And help support
There's still
one another.
10 minutes of this video
I think it's
left.
excellent. I love what you guys are doing because I think so often as parents, particularly moms, despite the fact you're constantly engaging with other moms, it can be very isolating. And I think social media, while it's a great tool, has been one of the worst things to ever happen to parents, because you see the highlight reels of everybody's best life, the best family photo, the best family trip, the perfect lunches, the perfect birthday parties.
How is this
and as
destroying
moms,
America?
We put so much pressure on ourselves to live up to the expectations of everybody else's highlight reel. And
how are
I
the
think
highlight
having
reels
a
part of the
support
liberal
system
agenda
in place and a platform for people to come and share ideas, talk about best practices, and actually empower one another instead of tear each other down.
I'm really looking forward, by the way, to the day that we finally go in there and we find it's like, you know, like 10 people and like half of them are white supremacists and the other half are like moms and they don't understand that like the other half are Nazis. I really look forward to that day, okay?
Is so needed, so desperately needed.
I've encouraged many parents through, the prep forum that we've created and some speeches I've given recently to get involved, to sit on school boards, to volunteer in school and be.
Sit on school boards. By the way, guys, as a reminder, if you still have to vote, please do your research about who's running for like your local school board, who's running for your local offices and judgeships and all kinds of different positions, because we want to make sure that crazy people who have no idea what they're talking about don't get political power in this country to enforce their kind of weird propaganda positions, okay? Like that's part of your duty as an American, okay? As true patriots, like I know all of you are. It is your duty to educate yourself on your local elections, to make sure these nutcases don't get in.
Be vocal, get involved in, even on a city level, one should get involved in not just big politics, but local politics, right? It's not just about what's happening in Washington, but what's happening on a local level.
See, and this is the thing. These people know the value of getting people into local offices, because if they have like a nutcase on your local school board, that nutcase suddenly has influence over thousands of students in their local area, okay? These are super important. Oh, youth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bud. Maybe, if you can, maybe consider running for office yourself, okay?
And parents have asked me, what do you do about your children? Aren't you afraid that there's going to be retaliation against these children?
Wait, what?
The educators or the administrators will find out that you're a parent that's, causing all kinds of problems. Are you worried that...
What? So her position is that the schools might retaliate against kids for something their parents are doing? Oh, geez. All
your
right.
kids are going to end up suffering for that and from that. And I do think it's a legitimate question. Do you have any advice for them or any thoughts on what to say to that?
I wonder what these people would say if like a white supremacist was trying to make the argument that like their children shouldn't learn about how slavery was bad. Because like earlier she said that like obviously you would teach about slavery and how it was bad. But like how would they react if someone farther right on the political spectrum, like just a little bit farther right, by the way, came to them and said, well, my child is being retaliated against because I don't want them to learn about, how awful slavery was, because I think the blacks had it pretty good. Like what would they say to that? Would they think that that person is being retaliated against unfairly and un-Americanly? I don't know. I would hope so. I would hope that they would think that that is ridiculous, because that's about how ridiculous I think they look right now. But I honestly don't know how they would respond to that. Like it's your right to not have your kids learn about what you don't want them to learn about. I don't know.
That kind of a concern.
Well, I think the most important thing, and you touched on this, is to be involved. I think we've seen over the last several months just how important local leadership really is, with government intruding on literally everything as a result of the COVID pandemic. Having strong local leadership, people that are making good decisions, decisions you agree with, has never been more apparent than what we've seen in the last 6 months, whether it's the school board or city commissions or your mayor or your governor. You want people that are reflecting the same ideas that you have. So being involved is absolutely critical, probably now more than it ever has been before.
This is the only accurate and specific part of the video.
The biggest thing you can point to is, if you're not willing to stand up for what matters for your kids, who will? And is that what you want to happen, is when nobody stands up and we move so far to the left? I think it's a risk worth taking, because our kids matter, their education matters, their lives matter, and what happens in our...
I really want to know what what is their fear if their kids do move to the left? What is the fear? I would like them to say, but they're not going to, because their assumption is that anyone watching this just inherently thinks that that's bad.
Our communities matters.
Like, I can articulate why I think their policies are bad. Because their policies inherently, like, disenfranchise the poor, marginalized parts of our society, and that we could actually do a lot better by them. They think that people who have less should suffer, so that people who are rich can get more rich. That's what their political positions are, and I think that that's bad, and I oppose that. We can go into more specifics on any given part of that, but, like, at its base, that's what that's about. I think we should transition to worker co-ops to give people better rights, and I think we should decommodify things like housing, electricity, food, healthcare, basic needs. I can articulate what my political positions are, and I can be honest about it. These people have to obfuscate where they're coming from and what they want to do.
And if good people that believe in principled education and believe in America and its greatness aren't willing to stand up and fight for it, we won't have it anymore.
Yeah, I feel like at the very least, it's not easy, but we're very lucky that at least we go to sleep at night knowing that we haven't ignored the problem and we haven't done nothing about it.
I feel like guys, I feel like I'm looking through a window at, like, some sort of bizarro universe where, like, I agree with everything they're saying, but I know that they're not saying it for the right reasons. Like, they're saying it for the exact opposite reasons that I would say it.
Everybody can do something little. I mean, they don't have to be a White House press secretary necessarily.
I wouldn't advise that for everybody. I would definitely advise against that.
But they can write a letter, right? Or they can, buy a curriculum that is going to have a more positive impact on their children. Absolutely. And everybody can find their comfort level as to what to do. But doing nothing will lead to, likely a lot of problems, and then we'll regret it.
A lot of very nebulous problems that we'll regret. Huh? Okay.
People don't want to look back and say, I could have done something, but I haven't because, I was too busy, or I was afraid, or I just didn't think it was that big or that important. I think the time to act is now, and if people are concerned about what they're seeing in America, they should be vocal about it.
Absolutely. So there's a story, and I actually close my book with this story and I think it touches on exactly what you were just saying. A while back, an 11-year-old girl went with her parents to Israel, and they went to see all of the historical sites, the biblical sites, and the last stop on their trip, one of the very last of their trip, was to go to Yad Vashem. And she was only 11, and her parents debated whether or not they should take her. They had been there many times before. They knew how graphic the images were, how difficult it would be for an 11-year-old to walk through and understand and fully appreciate just how dark a period in our world's history this was. But they also felt like it was incredibly important for her to see what happens when people are unwilling to stand up and fight back, and not stand and look evil in its face and say,
okay, so kids aren't old enough or mature enough at, like, 10 or 11 to learn about the full breadth of American history, both the positive and the negative. But they are old enough at 11 years old to go to a Holocaust museum and learn about genocide. I don't know what the position is these people are taking, okay? Because, like, okay, if you accept this, you should also accept that kids should learn about the horrors of slavery. They should learn about how our government funded terrorists and drug wars and, like, all kinds of awful things too. Like, if your line is like it's okay to learn about genocide because it helps us avoid these things in the future, like, well, then you should be open to learning other narratives from, like, Black people about what it was like to live under slavery during, like, the first 150 years of our country. Or you should be open to learning about the civil rights movement and how Black Americans were unjustly treated but under Jim Crow. You should be open to like, accurately learning about these things from different perspectives other than the prevailing white perspective. I don't understand this, like, weird double standard she has. Like, yeah, it's okay to learn about the like, the destruction of 6 million Jewish lives and, like, World War II. Like, obviously that's super important, but slavery of, like, 14 million people over, like, 150 years, 200, 400 years, whatever. It's fine. That's whatever. That's whatever. But, it's like this weird double standard here.
Not on our watch. And so they walked through that museum. The father stood next to his daughter throughout the entire museum. And she never said anything. She just kept walking. He, all the while, not looking at the exhibit, but watching his daughter, wondering, does she understand why we're here? She looked at the photos of the pictures of the shoes that had been ripped right off of kids' feet that were piled dozens of feet high. She listened to the voices of the survivors talk about how difficult it was for them to come out.
Oh, interesting. So you learned about the narrative of a disenfranchised and historically mistreated people, and you learned about the proper context of why that happened. Interesting. Interesting, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Very interesting.
She saw the photos of the bodies that were stacked, one on top of another. She didn't say a word for an hour and a half.
By the way, you could literally say all of these same things about bodies being stacked on top of each other, about possessions that had been ripped out of the arms and hands of people who were being enslaved to benefit the United States of America. You could literally learn about a very similar narrative. Not exactly the same, but a very similar narrative. And they're against teaching that kind of thing. You're trying to gain the trust of a wildcat. Any tips? I guess it depends on the wildcat. Are you trying like are we talking cougar? Are we talking about like a fuzzy baby? Are we talking like tiger? I'd suggest some catnip and tuna, my friend.
Which is a pretty big feat for an 11-year-old girl. At some point, though, she reached up and grabbed a hold of her dad's hand, still not saying anything. And he was so terrified that they had put too much on their 11-year-old daughter and that she wouldn't understand why it was important for them to be there until they got to the end. And they stepped up to a podium and it had a guest book, and she wrote her name and her address down in the guest book. And next to it was a place for comments. The father was looking over his daughter's shoulder, wondering, will she write something that lets me know she understands why we're here? And she wrote down the words, why didn't somebody do something? And it was so clear for both of them that if good people don't stand up for what's right, bad things happen. I get emotional telling that story. I was the 11.
I need to point out that while they're not seeing the connection between everything they just said and like not teaching the full story of like slavery or anything like that. Remember, this conversation started out with them like dunking on the 1619 Project, which is a story entirely about the story of slavery in the United States. And now Sarah Huckabee Sanders is like, well, but actually 11-year-olds should be taught about the horrors of genocide, which they should. I agree with that. 100%. I agree with this. they should also learn about the slavery stuff. They should learn about the stuff America did badly, in addition to the stuff America did well. Like, but the reason she's telling the story in this video, so that she can say that the left is essentially in the position of Nazis committing genocide, and the right needs to stand up to the left to prevent that. It's pretty incredible and disgusting, and I have nothing but contempt for these two women.
11-year-old girl, my dad walked me through that museum. I will never forget the images of what it looks like when good people don't fight for what matters, when good people don't stand up and fight for what's important. If we don't do that in America, we can lose our country. We lose who we are. So we have to step up. We have to be willing to be the somebodies who do something and say, not on our watch, not in our country.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story with me. I can't think of a better way to end this segment. I know, I feel
God.
incredibly energized to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm unbelievable.
Yeah, otherwise those dang leftists are gonna, commit a genocide. The thing leftists are very famous for doing, not fascists on the far right, but what an incredible freeze frame. Anyway.
Unbelievably grateful for what you do for our country. So thank you. And you know what? It's just it's a real pleasure to serve alongside you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. If you want to leave with any final comments our audience, any advice on what parents can do?
I think the most important thing we can do, one, is love our kids. Let them know how important they are to us, what a priority they are for us, and that we're willing to stand up and fight for them and make sure that they get to continue living in the greatest country on the face of the planet. We shouldn't take that for granted, and we should do what is necessary to protect them and protect our great country.
Well, you heard it directly from Sarah. I couldn't agree more, and I'm sure you all agree with us as well. So if there's anything you can...
Yeah, I'm sure we all agree with them as well. Except that they spent most of this video shitting on people for teaching the full story of America. So, I don't know. I don't know about this, guys.
Do to help protect our country, please, we invite you to join us and check out prep at PragerU.com. We hope to see you there, and thanks again.
One day we will dig into prep, guys, I promise.